All right, so today we're going to try to figure out just how exactly Trump's policies are going to be impacting the future, your future.
Yeah.
And we've got a whole bunch of Bloomberg segments
Okay.
to try to help us understand.
Right.
And they cover everything from like chip makers to AI to even, get this, Beyonce's Grammy win.
Wow.
Yeah, so let's see if we can figure out how it all connects.
I think that's going to be fascinating because what these sources really reveal is that we're not just talking about some simple trade war here.
Right.
We're actually looking at this global competition for who's going to control the technology of the future. And the U.S. and China are the main players in this game.
Yeah.
And these tariffs, they're just one of the moves in this bigger game.
So let's start by talking about these tariffs.
Yeah.
What exactly are we talking about here?
Well, there's this 10% tariff that's being slapped on pretty much all goods coming in from China.
Okay.
And then there's this possibility that they're going to scrap this thing called the $800 de minimis rule.
De minimis?
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, it basically lets companies, especially these Chinese companies like Temu and Shein, ship small packages without having to pay those big tariffs.
Oh, okay.
And then on top of all that, we've still got those 25% tariffs that were supposed to hit Mexico and Canada, but they've been delayed for now.
Right.
So yeah, the markets are pretty freaked out about all of this, especially these big tech giants like Apple and Nvidia.
So how would getting rid of this de minimis thing actually affect like you and me, everyday people?
Well, think about it. You know how you can go on Temu and get a t-shirt for like $5?
Yeah.
That's because of de minimis. If that goes away, say goodbye to those super cheap prices.
Oh, so it's going to make things more expensive?
Exactly. And this is all part of this bigger push by Trump. He wants to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. and create what he calls fair trade. But, you know, it's complicated, right?
Right.
Because it could also cause some big problems in the tech world.
So is China just like sitting back and letting all of this happen?
No, not at all.
What are they doing?
They're actually fighting back with their own technology.
Okay.
And one of their big moves is this thing called DeepSeek.
DeepSeek?
Yeah, it's a Chinese AI model. And it's causing a lot of concern, I think, in the U.S.
Why? What's so special about it?
Well, it's supposed to be as good as these models that we have here from OpenAI and Microsoft.
Okay.
But it's way cheaper.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's kind of a wake-up call.
So what does this mean for me? Is this DeepSeek thing going to make my life easier or harder?
It's hard to say for sure, but AI is already changing pretty much everything, right?
Yeah.
How we work, how we travel, how we get our news, even how we shop online.
Yeah.
And as it gets even more powerful and easier for people to use, it's going to have an even bigger impact.
Okay, so is it a good thing or a bad thing?
It's both.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword for sure.
Okay, so we've got these tariffs, we've got this AI race going on.
Right.
What else is happening here?
Well, there's the whole issue with chips.
Chips, like potato chips.
No, like computer chips.
Oh,
The things that power pretty much all of our technology.
Okay.
And these tariffs, especially if they start restricting how many chips we can export, that could really hurt these leading chip makers like Nvidia and TSMC. And these are the companies that are really driving a lot of the innovation in AI, so it's a big deal.
So if we stop China from getting chips, won't that slow them down in the AI race?
That's what some people think, but it could also backfire.
Oh.
Well, China could just decide, okay, we're going to build our own chip industry.
Right.
And then U.S. companies would lose out on a huge market.
Oh, I see.
Plus, restricting chip exports, it could actually end up hurting our own tech development here in the U.S.
Okay, so this is getting really complicated.
Yeah.
But then you add Elon Musk to the mix, and it gets even crazier.
Oh, yeah.
He's now in charge of the U.S. government's payment system for contractors, and he just shut down USAID.
Wow.
Yeah, it's giving me serious Twitter takeover vibes, especially with that whole fork in the road email he sent to all the federal workers. Is this guy trying to, like, run the entire world?
He's certainly not afraid to take on big challenges.
That's one way to put it.
And he definitely has a lot of influence now within the government.
Right.
But nobody knows for sure how it's all going to play out.
Yeah, this is some uncharted territory for sure.
Definitely.
So on the one hand, we've got this global tech showdown.
Right.
And on the other hand, we've got Elon Musk making these power plays in the U.S. government.
Yeah.
It's a lot to wrap my head around.
And there's more.
There's more.
Yeah. This smaller story, but still pretty important, about a company called Hidden Level.
Hidden Level? What's that?
They do this airspace drone monitoring.
Okay.
And they just got a huge investment, like $100 million, and a big contract with the Department of Defense.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And apparently, They even helped to secure the recent inauguration.
With their drone monitoring.
Yeah, they're working with some big names, too, like Lockheed Martin and Palantir.
So what exactly are they monitoring, and why is it so important?
Well, drones can be used for a lot of things, right?
Yeah, like delivering packages.
Exactly. But they can also be used for not so good things, like smuggling or even attacks.
Oh, right.
So Hidden Levels technology, it basically helps to track those drones and figure out who's flying them and what they're up to.
So they're like the air traffic controllers for the drone world.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's becoming more and more important as the skies get more and more crowded with drones.
So even with all this craziness going on in the world, there are still companies out there trying to make things better.
Absolutely. And Hidden Levels, a great example of that.
Yeah.
It shows that innovation is still happening.
Okay.
And it's not just about the big companies. Smaller companies are also finding ways to contribute and make a difference.
Okay, so speaking of making a difference, can we talk about the Grammys for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Beyoncé just won Album of the Year, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's stormy.
She's the first Black artist to win Best Country Album.
Right, it's a big deal.
But what does this have to do with all this tech stuff we've been talking about?
Well, the Beatles also won a Grammy, and they used AI to clean up John Lennon's vocals from some old tapes for their song.
Wait, so they brought John Lennon back to life using AI?
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's a good example of how AI is changing things, even in the music world.
So it's not just about self-driving cars and robots taking over the world.
No, it's affecting everything, even art and music.
Okay, so we've gone from trade wars and AI arms races to drone monitoring and Beyoncé at the Grammys.
Right.
I think I'm starting to see how it all connects, but it's a lot to take in.
It is a lot, and it's all happening so fast, but that's what makes it so fascinating.
Okay, well, I'm definitely feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Understand.
But also totally intrigued.
Yeah.
So what's next? Where does this all lead?
That's the big question, isn't it? And honestly, I don't think anybody knows for sure.
Sure.
But that's what makes it so interesting. We're living through this really unprecedented time of change. And the choices that we make now, they're going to shape the world for generations to come.
Well, that's a cheerful thought.
Yeah, it's exciting and a little bit scary at the same time, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But we're going to keep diving deep into all of this together, so stay tuned.
Sounds good to me. I'm ready for more.
Okay. It really is a fascinating time, isn't it? Everything feels like it's changing so quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
And all these things we've been talking about, the tariffs, they're just one piece of this much bigger puzzle, you know?
You mentioned earlier how these tariffs could actually hit us like regular people in the wallet.
Right.
How would that work?
Well, think about those online marketplaces like Temu and Shine. They're super popular.
Yeah.
And it's because they offer these crazy cheap goods, often shipped straight from China.
Yeah, I've gotten some good deals on there.
Exactly. And a lot of that is thanks to that de minimis rule we were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
which basically lets these companies kind of sidestep those tariffs on smaller packages.
So if that rule goes away.
If that rule goes away, yeah, those prices are definitely going to jump up.
So that like $5 t-shirt could become a $10 t-shirt.
Exactly.
I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Yeah, and it's not just about t-shirts, right? This could have a much bigger impact on the whole e-commerce world.
How so?
Well, those larger companies like Amazon, they already have to pay tariffs on their bulk shipments.
Right.
So if de minimis disappears, it could create a much more level playing field, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
Okay, let's go back to this whole AI race for a second.
Sure.
I get that China is making some big moves, but why should I, as like a regular person, care about this?
Well, think about it. AI is already impacting our lives in so many ways, right?
Yeah, I guess.
It's changing how we work, how we travel, how we get our news, even how we shop.
Yeah, true.
And as AI gets even more powerful, that impact's only going to grow.
So you're saying this isn't just like some science fiction fantasy?
Not at all. It's happening right now.
Huh.
And the real question is, who's going to be in control of this technology?
Right.
Is it going to be a small group of powerful corporations? Or will it be more evenly spread out? And what does that mean for the everyday person?
Okay, so going back to DeepSeek.
Yeah.
This cheaper AI that's supposedly as good as what we have here.
Right.
What could that actually mean for me in my, daily life?
Well, imagine, what if you could have access to, like, personalized healthcare recommendations
Okay.
that are actually tailored to your DNA? Or imagine a virtual tutor that could teach you anything you want.
Yeah.
Or even self-driving cars that are actually safe and reliable. I mean, that's the kind of potential we're talking about here.
That does sound pretty amazing.
It really does.
But what about the downsides? You mentioned like jobs and stuff.
Right. That's the other side of the coin. And it's something we have to think about seriously. As AI gets better at doing things that humans currently do, some jobs are inevitably going to become automated.
Right.
That's happened throughout history. Every time there's been a major technological shift.
Sure.
The real key is to adapt, you know.
Adapt how?
Figure out how we can work alongside these new technologies rather than trying to compete with them.
Okay, so it sounds like this is like a global game of chess with the future of technology hanging in the balance.
I like that analogy, yeah.
And speaking of high-stakes players, let's talk about Elon Musk.
Oh, Elon.
This whole thing with the government payment system is just wild.
It's definitely unconventional, to say the least.
Yeah.
He's basically inserted himself right into the heart of government operations.
Right.
And nobody really knows what he's ultimately trying to achieve.
So is he like a visionary or is he just like a loose cannon?
I think he's a brilliant guy, incredibly ambitious, not afraid to shake things up.
That's for sure.
But that kind of power, it comes with a lot of responsibility. And I think it's really important to have those checks and balances in place.
Yeah, transparency is really key in a situation like this.
Absolutely.
Speaking of transparency, let's talk about hidden level and this whole drone monitoring thing.
Yeah.
What exactly are they monitoring and why is it so important?
Well, you know, drones can be used for so many different things.
Yeah, like we said, delivering packages.
Right, inspecting infrastructure, all sorts of good stuff.
Right.
But they can also be used for things that are not so good, like smuggling or even attacks.
Yeah, that's scary.
It is, and that's where hidden level comes in.
Okay.
Their technology helps to track those drones and figure out, are they the good guys or are they the bad guys?
So like air traffic control for the drone world.
Exactly, and it's becoming more and more crucial as our skies get more and more crowded with these things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they're working with Palantir, which is a company that's really known for its data analysis expertise.
Right.
So that gives them a big advantage.
Yeah. So even in the midst of all this, like global uncertainty and competition,
Yeah.
there are still companies out there focused on like creating solutions, making the world a better place.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important to remember.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of good happening in the world, even when it feels like everything's falling apart.
I like that. That's a good point.
And speaking of good things, can we talk about Beyoncé for a minute? Her Grammy win was just fantastic.
Yeah, Renaissance is a masterpiece.
It is.
And it's just incredible, that historic win. It's so powerful.
Absolutely.
But I'm still trying to get my head around the fact that the Beatles won a Grammy for a song that uses, like, AI-generated vocals.
It's really pushing the boundaries, isn't it?
Yeah.
It raises so many questions about, like, what's real, what's artificial, what does it even mean to be an artist in this new world?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a whole new frontier.
Okay. So we've gone from trade wars and AI arms races
Right.
to drone monitoring and Beyoncé's Grammy win.
It's all connected.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together, but it's a lot.
I know, it's a lot to process.
What can we, like regular people, do to make sure that the future is a good one?
That's a great question. And I think the most important thing is to stay informed.
Okay.
Educate yourself about the technologies that are shaping our world.
Right.
Don't just blindly accept what you're told.
We'll be sheeple.
Exactly. Question things, challenge those assumptions, demand transparency from the people in power.
So it's not just about understanding the tech, it's about understanding, like, the implications,
Exactly.
the choices we make.
Right, because technology is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
Right.
So it's up to us to make sure it's being used responsibly.
So how do we do that?
Well, like I said, stay informed,
Right.
be engaged, participate in the conversation.
Yeah.
Make your voice heard.
So what do you think, what does the future hold for, like, the tech landscape?
I wish I had a crystal ball. But if there's one thing we've learned from all of this, it's that the future is unpredictable.
That's true.
But that doesn't mean we can't prepare for it, right?
So what should we be doing?
We need to understand the trends, the forces at play, so we can make informed decisions and navigate the challenges that lie ahead.
So be flexible, adaptable.
Exactly. The world's changing faster than ever, and those who can keep up, they're going to be the ones who thrive.
Okay, good advice.
And on that note, I think it's time to move on to the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still more to explore.
I'm ready. Let's do it. It's kind of crazy how we started talking about tariffs and we end up talking about, like, the future of music.
Yeah, it really shows you how all these things, even if they seem totally separate, they're actually all connected in some way.
Yeah, for sure.
It's all part of this, like, massive wave of technological change
Right.
that's just, like, washing over everything.
Right. And you mentioned that we all have a role to play in, like, shaping the future.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like?
Well, for one thing, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Okay.
Challenge the status quo. You know, demand transparency from the people and the companies that are building these really powerful technologies.
So be informed, be engaged, be, like, a little skeptical.
Exactly.
Okay.
Don't just accept everything you hear at face value.
Right.
Think critically about the information you're getting, the choices you're making.
Yeah.
And remember, you have a voice.
Yeah.
Use it.
Advocate for the kind of future you want to see.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me from all of this is that the future isn't, like, set in stone.
Right.
It's being shaped right now by the decisions we make every day, both individually and as a society.
So what you're saying is, like, we're not just passengers on this ride.
Exactly.
We're actually, like, helping to steer the ship.
Exactly. So stay curious, stay engaged, and don't be afraid to make your voice heard.
Okay, I like that.
The future is in our hands.
That's a really powerful message.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's time to bring this deep dive to a close.
Right.
Thanks for joining us on this wild ride
Yeah, it's been fun.
through the world of tech and tariffs and everything in between.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
And to our listeners, keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Keep pushing for a better future.
And until next time.